right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Two Bald Nerds. This one bald nerd over here is Mike Meyers, and I'm Richard Chapman from CyberNow Labs. Let's have some fun today. What do you think? Mike, how you doing, man?
I'm all about fun, Richard. You know me.
Work has to be work has to be fun, or it's a four-letter word, right?
Yeah, I'm all about fun because I'm a fun guy.
You're a fun guy. You're a mushroom. Love it. Great.
That's me, baby.
Hey, listen, we talked a lot about kind of turning your home into a castle. And you and I were discussing and kind of briefly touched on home routers, some of the best, maybe high security home routers for your home network. So I thought we'd spend a few minutes and talk a little bit about that. And looks like you've got some show and tell here today, which is pretty awesome. So,
I did.
Yeah.
So these are the three routers that I'm currently recommending. And we will talk about model numbers today, Richard, but what I want to make sure everybody gets kind of a zeitgeist of, it ain't necessarily about the model number, it's the features. So I'm not going to be, I know we talked in another episode, we discussed about security with routers. All of these routers will have that. So that's, I'm really not going to be talking about security very much. It's going to be features and throughput and configurability, if that's okay, man.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I think that, you know, a lot of home users maybe don't know exactly what they need to get. And when they set up a home internet, a lot of times they get a router from their ISP. Is that good enough? Do they need to replace that?
Oh, you mean something like my router? Like this beastie?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is actually the router that I have from AT&T. That's fiber coming in the back and Cat 6 going out to my rack. Yes, I actually do have a small rack here in my house. Set it all up.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
So this is actually above my refrigerator, believe it or not, Richard. When I wired this house up for Cat 6 years ago, I had assumed that directly above my refrigerator, I was going to put a monitor that would be scrolling and outputting weather information and news and all that. I never did that. And thank goodness I didn't, because when I got rid of my cable modem and decided to go with fiber, all they had to do is run the fiber to right above my refrigerator. That's that yellow line there. And then I could just plug my router into there, and that runs into my switch in about 25 feet away. So it worked out beautifully for me. It actually has a door. I wish I could almost do this live. This is still photo, but the door snaps up and you can see there's a couple of spots where I forgot to stain it. Oh, well, you can't tell. But first of all, yeah, there's nothing wrong with most home routers. In fact, that's what I wanted to start with by saying is, when in doubt, don't. From a security standpoint, from a feature standpoint, almost any wireless router is going to be okay. It will work. The challenge you run into with folks, especially when we're talking about home routers today, is throughput, because people want to run home theater systems that are wireless. People want to do Zoom meetings wirelessly. People want to do fairly high bandwidth stuff wirelessly. And that can be a challenge. Now, just as a qualifier, because my house is wired, I am biased for wired at all times. Even my big laptop has an RJ45 connector in it, because if I can avoid wireless, I do. However, like here at my house, I've got a home theater system that is completely wireless, but I had to jump through some hoops to make sure that that would work. So let's start with that concept. So Richard, I'm going to quiz you for starters.
Oh, boy.
Do you have a home theater in your house?
We could call it a home theater. I'm sure it's not as impressive as yours.
Does it? Mine's not impressive at all. Do you have an RJ45 plug it into the back of your TV, or is it the screw-in DOSIS connection?
I have an RJ45.
Okay, so you definitely have home theater. Cool. All right. So, but you have RJ45 popping in.
Yep.
Okay. So at my house, just given the where, that's good. One for Richard Chapman. Most people don't. What happens is most people put their TV what's most convenient for them. And unless it's professionally installed, 9 times out of 10, people just don't like the ugly wires. And what they'll do is they'll grab a wireless RJ45 to wireless. So many smart TVs today have wireless already built in. It's great stuff. So you need good throughput to that. So when we're talking about throughput, the most important thing you can say, and this has been true since 802.11n, AC, and now AX, or Wi-Fi 4, Wi-Fi 5, and Wi-Fi 6. Anyway, the bottom line is bands. So let's take a look at my first selection here. Let me bring this up so you can see a little bit better.
Now, while you're switching that over, if I can ask a question, when I think about cars, somebody goes and buys a sports car, and the first thing they do is they go upgrade it to make it go faster, right? So is that router that you're getting from your ISP, is it fast enough, or do you need to Tim Taylor it up and go get the fastest router that's available? It just depends on what you're doing, I guess. Right?
Let's talk about bands first, because that is a very good question, but I need to arm you with more information so you can ask the question again better.
Gotcha.
Bands is where it's all at. When we're talking about home routers, you're always going to say, it's going to say dual band, or it's going to say tri-band, or whatever that means. And you can sometimes guesstimate your bands just by looking at the antennas. In general, remember, when we're talking about 802.11, you've got two big bands. You've got the 2.4 gigahertz band, and you have the 5 gigahertz band. Now, I need to warn you, there's another band for 802.11 AX that just came out last year, which is a 6 gigahertz band, but that's rare and weird. And as of this late in 2022, early 2023, it's not a practical option for people in a home network, small office network, nor is it necessary. Okay. So we have these two big bands. We have 2.4 gigahertz, and then we have 5 gigahertz. 2.4 was the original band, and that dates back to the year 2000, 2001. And the 2.4 gigahertz band was wonderful back when wireless networks were running at 11 megabits a second and that type of thing. But today, pretty much everything is moved to the 5 gigahertz band. If they're still using the 5 gigahertz band, Mike, then why is there still 2.4 on all these things? Backward compatibility. Richard, there's so many cameras, thermostats, a lot of IoT devices still lean on that 2.4 gigahertz band. And as a result, it's very difficult, unless you get into enterprise level wireless access points, to find devices that don't support it. The bottom line is that your home theater system, your big desktop that you're doing, or laptop that you're doing your Zoom meetings on, those are all going to be, unless the thing's 4 or 5 years old, they're going to be 802.11ac or 802.11ax. Okay. And when you're buying a wireless access point, what you want to do is you want to buy this thing, plug it in, configure it, and forget about it for a minimum of 2 years. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
You just want it to work. So I am of the world that says, buy the latest technology. Even if you may not need it today, you'll probably want it tomorrow. So that's a philosophical thing. And if my buddy Dave Rush was on right now, he'd be like, what are you talking about? Because he always likes the good deals. And there's nothing wrong with good deals. So basically what I want to do is, first of all, now that we understand bands, what will happen if you take a look at this guy, this is what's known as a dual band. This one, even though it only has 4 antennas, is a tri-band. It actually supports 2 5 gigahertz channels, 2 5 gigahertz. And then this beastie, look at this thing. This is a quad band. So there are 4 different bands in it. The more bands you have, the better your throughput's going to be. So we'll say a particular device maxes out at a certain bandwidth, but each one of those bands can do that same bandwidth. So even though it's a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit with the radios, if you put more lanes in, it'll run faster, right? You get more cars going.
Yeah.
So, and this is one of the big things that separates a $50 wireless access point router from a $300 wireless access point router, is the number of bands it supports. And you'll see things, they'll say dual band, they'll say tri-band, or sometimes you'll see 2x2 or 3x3. That's all they're talking about. Those are send and receive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Great. So number one, buy 802.11ax. To be honest with you, if you're buying a new home router these days, you'll be hard pressed to find anything that isn't 802.11ax. Be careful, folks, because sometimes you'll go in there and you go, oh, look, here's one for $12 and some naval lint. And it's like, well, you don't want that because it's probably 802.11ac or something like that. So the 802.11ax is what we're going for. And everything I'm going to show you guys today is 802.11ax. In fact, even that, let me put it back up one more time. So even that router that I got from AT&T is 802.11ax. All right. So the first thing I want to show you, this is a TP-Link brand. This is their Archer series. Let me see if I can show this to you guys. So yeah, pardon all my extra stuff on there, Richard. This is I'm coming in quick. All right,
You're
so
getting
this,
fancy.
can you
You're
see
getting
it?
fancy with all these new camera views and stuff. I love
I'm
it,
working
man.
on it. I'm working on it.
It's awesome.
So this particular beastie, this is the Archer. It's from TP-Link, the Archer AX1500. This is a sub $100 home wireless access point router. Okay. So this guy is dual band, and it has all the extra little features we'll want, has all the security. It also has, believe it or not, WPA3, which we ought to talk about if we get a chance, Richard. Let me get this focused a little better. Sorry about that.
There we go.
We need to be talking about WPA3 sometime. It's just an incredible encryption standard, and it's really made things a lot safer. Now, if you look in the back of this, you're going to see it doesn't have anything too exciting. Power source, power button. The blue one is where you plug into your ISP. I got 4 outputs, which is always nice. You know, people forget about this. When they see a wireless router, they think everything has to be wireless. This is certainly wireless, but I can plug 4 devices into this. You see that?
Yeah.
So, and these are gigabit ports. Nothing's going to beat that. Of course, that means that this wireless router has to be close to my desktop system, or you have to be nuts like me and actually run structured cabling in your home. All right. And then there's other stuff.
That's not nuts. That's almost standard in some places now.
You know what, Richard, you bring up an interesting point, and that is this house was built in 1969. And I basically took the entire first floor and ripped all the walls out. So it's basically a big kitchen and playland, you know,
right?
Bachelor pad. And so when I had everything ripped out down to the studs, I'm like, I'm pulling cable. And it was great. But you are right. My daughter and son-in-law just bought a new house. I mean, just bought a new house in Denver. And it's part of the contractor deal was to run Cat 6. However, since we're going to mention this, Richard, this is important. If you're ever going to go into a house that has wired low power in it, make them show you every single one of those connections. Because what most people do, what most contractors will do, is they'll have some central location or down in the basement, and then it runs up to like only 2 or 3 places. The idea, Richard, is that's where they think you're going to install wireless access points. They don't really install wiring in residences to hook your desktop computer up to, or your home theater up to. So if you're going to go that route and you're letting somebody else do it, folks, definitely stay on top of them. And you need to be thinking, where do I need wires? Like in my house, I have a guest bedroom. I got a wire in there. Yeah, I've got a couple of wires running for wireless access points, but I also have one upstairs in my office, a direct connection. The only mistake I made, Richard, and this is why my home theater is on wireless, I didn't think about home theater. This studio was going to be my home theater, and you can barely see it, but it's actually, there's a RJ11 connector in the ceiling, which I thought I was going to plug a projector into it and then around to it, all these excuses. But if you're going to wire at home, folks, make sure that you put the drops where you think you'll need them, and then put in 2 more. Who'd have thought I'd have needed one in my kitchen, right? Okay, so this TP-Link, this is the Archer AX1500, and it's a great little box. It only has one 5 gigahertz stream, which is, for most people, that's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. You're running one home theater system. You've got one system, and you got to help with a couple little smartphones jump on the wireless from time to time. You'll be fine. The downside to something like this beastie is that you'll discover you're not fine too late. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You throw a party, you do something, all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, the internet's down. No, the internet's running fine. It's just your wireless is choking to death. So this is why a lot of times I recommend people shy away from these lower end home routers and kick it up a little bit. So one click up right here. So this is the Asus. Let me give you guys an up close and personal on that. So this is the Asus, a little dark. There you go. So this we'll get it out eventually. This is the Asus Rtax AX8000. It's been around for a little bit, but it's still obviously 802.11ax. You'll see it's got all the connections. One feature I really like, and I think we talked about this, that is a USB connection. I can actually plug a thumb drive in here and turn this guy into a little server. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So it's a handy feature, and I like it quite a bit. Hardware reset, on-off button, WPS connections, no big deal there. So, but it's a great little box. Don't let the number of antennas fool you. In this particular case, I have two 5 gigahertz channels. Still supports 2.4, but I also have the two 5.4 channels. The beauty to that is that, and you don't have to configure anything here, Richard. 802.11 is a wildly intelligent protocol. And this box will see, oh, I've got a lot of people there. Here's one guy who's just grabbing a lot of bandwidth. I'll kind of, give him a stream to himself. There are ways to configure this within clients, but in my opinion, that's kind of an enterprise level thing. And at home, if you're finding yourself where you have to start dedicating channels to particular devices, you probably need to upgrade out of this and start moving into the $1,200 separate router and dedicated wireless access points world. So I want to avoid that. And for the record, I've never had to do that. And here we are. I'm running movies literally right now. I'm running a 4K movie on my home theater, and I'm talking to you at the same time. Seem pretty smooth?
Yeah, seems pretty smooth.
You got all right. So a box like this works real well. You'll start to see features, and this, if you want to terrify yourself, pull up the technical specs on any of these. Number one, they're going to talk about junk that is, in my opinion, not important. For example, Asus is all big on the RGB lighting thing. And if I plug this in, I can actually program it to glow different colors. It sits in a closet. I don't care about that stuff. But they are there. This has wonderful throughput. And this can go up to, I don't want to lie, almost 5 gigahertz. And that, but you'd have to be doing some special things. Let me explain one special thing. Let's see if I can do this without causing damage. Yeah, we'll leave it in. So this is my power laptop. This is when I'm running virtual machines, if I'm teaching Active Directory, this thing's got 64 gigs of RAM in it. It's got dual M.2s. It's a beastie. It's got real RJ45, which is important to me. But what it does have, it has an 802.11ax network card in it that supports 2 streams.
Oh, wow.
This guy can go, and you don't have to do anything. It just works automatically and beautifully. So this guy will automatically pick up 2 streams if necessary. And I get outrageous throughput with this. Can you imagine doing Active Directory logons to a classroom full of 40 students wirelessly? With this one, I will. So, but that's rare. And that's something you have to look for in your mobile devices. You're not going to see it on a smartphone of any type. So like, here's my Microsoft Surface. This is an old Surface too, but I love it so much. But it only has a single stream support, which is what most devices do. So if you're getting a more upgraded home router, you need to be thinking about the devices that are going to be supporting it. It's a big deal. Home theater, give it a channel if it's wireless. Big dedicated system that's doing doing Zoom channels, or your like super high intensive gaming, give it a channel. Get the idea? Yeah. So
when you're thinking about these access points, those bands are also going to assist with to translate it to a normal everyday user, more devices as well. I mean, I think most families probably have 20 plus devices already in their environment right now.
Yeah, but you got to keep in mind, of those 20 devices, 10 of them are turned off. There's going to be a lot of the devices are going to need your 2.4 gigahertz band. That's always going to be a single band. Just set up an SSID on there and just let them talk to that.
Yeah.
The more devices you can keep off your 5 gigahertz bands, the better. I have a garage door opener that is on the 2.4 gigahertz band. The one exception for mobile devices is my smartphone, mainly because I like watching YouTube videos and stuff like this. So I will intentionally connect my smartphone to a 5 gigahertz band. But you know, that does come to be an issue. So, but again, the only thing I can stop happening for somebody is to not have the internet go slow. See where I'm coming from?
Oh yeah.
But Richard, I think you are a little bit like me. So let's talk about the bam bam
Big
jamma
boy.
here. And again, now guys, I know this is also TP-Link, all right? So I don't want you to think that I'm in love with TP-Link. Well, I am kind of in love with TP-Link, but in no way are they the only game in town as far as I'm concerned. But,
I do feel like there's a meme. I do feel like there's a meme here, Mike. Like a router with like 47 antennas is the best one to buy.
Oh, and Richard,
Yeah.
they'll sell them to you.
I'm sure they will.
Maybe not 47, but you can get big arrays, that's for sure. Right, so anyway, let's take a look at this particular beastie here. So this is TP-Link. This is their Archer series. This is the AX6000, which in my opinion is about as top as you can get for a Soho environment. With 4 streams running, it's going to absolutely blow everything out of the water. If you have devices that can support multiple streams, then this thing will automatically handle for you. If you've got a bunch of devices, this thing automatically will handle it for you. There's very little to do other than just enjoy the benefits of it. You also see it's got a big 8-port switch on there, which again is really sweet if you're plugging lots of devices in. And I absolutely think this type of thing is amazing. Now, you can get a little bit fancier, again, if bandwidth is a big issue for you. And let me backtrack one more time. All the security stuff we've talked about in other Two Bald Nerds episodes, they all have this, all right?
Yeah.
So that's not an issue. So that's why performance. I mean, what else is there? Security and performance. Is there anything else? Oh,
No,
I guess
that's
pretty
good.
lights.
Cost. Yeah, cost.
Oh yeah,
obviously.
this one we're talking $300 range.
Which isn't really that bad when you consider if you're in need of that kind of throughput, that's not that bad of an investment for an entire house.
Yeah, it's always funny. Like I recently did a series on my live stream where I bought a RTX 4090 card, and everybody's like, "Why did you buy it?" And I was like, "Because it was there," and it's literally sitting next to my table right here, turned off and unplugged. It's so heavy; it weighs 27 pounds. I've got to figure out a place to do it. Anyway, I buy for the future, not for today.
Yeah.
Let me throw in one more corollary, and then I'll finish what I was going to say. If you buy for tomorrow and not today, there's 2 very strong schools here. If you buy for tomorrow, you'll never buy anything because there's always going to be another Soho router that's about to come out. There's always going to be a faster graphics card that's about to come out. So if you're buying for tomorrow, buy for tomorrow, but buy it today. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Whereas if people are just buying for today, they're not going to be thinking about what type of standards, how many streams are going, that type of thing. So again, that's a philosophical thing, and people can disagree with me, and they're wrong. But the other thing I want to talk about here is I thought I had a pretty picture for it. Let me pop this up. This is actually directly from Asus's webpage, and this graphic is better than anything I can do. So I'm just going to show this to you. Take a look at this. So what I'm looking at here is a webpage, and they're talking about a couple of things that are very important here. There's 2 things going on at once. Number one, this is link aggregation. You can actually take 2 of these ports, okay? and they will work as one 2 gigabit port. If you're needing throughput, especially like say you're running a gaming server, or you're like me and I use Blender at home a lot and stuff like this, I can double my network speed and it's absolutely fantastic. Now, just because you can double your internal network speed, that doesn't mean that you're doubling everything, right? You're only getting as fast of internet as what you're paying for. But a lot of times for internal networks, I have a server that has my, I'm not even going to tell you how many DVDs and Blu-rays that I've time shifted and stored up. But that 2 gigabit speed, I can run 4Ks, no problem. Absolutely beautiful stuff. So link aggregation is something you might want to consider, but just because your box has link aggregation, that means everything else has to have link aggregation too. You understand? Just because he's outputting 2 gig, everybody else has to be able to match that 2 gig, take advantage of it. Also keep in mind your switch that you're plugging into would have to have that. Now, in this case, what they're talking there, let me bring this back up. What so many people at home do is they use these. This is their switch. They don't buy a dedicated switch. They just run the wires out of the back of the box and into the individual system. So just keep that in mind when you're considering that. The other thing that's nice is WAN aggregation. Now, for WAN aggregation, you have to make sure that you have a system that can keep up to your WAN. Now, in my situation, I've got gigabit, all right? There's no great motivation for me to want to do WAN aggregation because I'd have to have faster than a gigabit to take advantage of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, that's I don't do that. However, on this particular device, what I can do, this is kind of cool. I can treat another one of these LAN ports as a rollover. If something breaks here, this can kick over. I'm not doing it right now, but for about a year, I was running my DOSIS, my cable modem, as well as my AT&T. And I would have one of these. This isn't exactly the system I have, but I would have this plugged into my AT&T, and then this would be plugged in as a rollover if this went down. I couldn't aggregate them because they were different providers, but it was pretty impressive in terms of redundancy. And I got to tell you, that is the one thing I've got to give DOSIS, is that I live in a place with lots of hurricanes, and you can pretty much count on the last thing that's going to die in your house when the power goes out and everything is your cable. They're very, very powerful. I keep intending to put a backup power unit in here, a natural gas powered generator, and it will just keep going. When everybody else's power is gone and nobody else can get on the internet, you can get on, which I think is just something to consider. But anyway, so that gives you some kind of ideas here, Richard, from free, which comes with your ISP, all the way up to $300+. Think about the number of channels and think about the types of devices that are going to eat up your bandwidth, and you'll be in good shape. All right, let me throw in one more thing. There is something called QoS, or quality of service. QoS is a very old feature. It's been around for 25 years. It's nothing special, but it's a little bit kind of new in terms of SOHO wireless routers. QoS allows you to say, okay, you can talk to the router. All right, you actually have to type at it, but I'll talk at it like this. Okay, router, anytime you see me playing, oh, I don't know, Crisis, World of Warcraft, whatever it is, I want you to make sure that I get all the bandwidth I need. Even if that means other things that are happening, their bandwidth is reduced. QoS is a fascinating technology. It takes a little bit of thinking about, and it's often defined by, depending on the brand of wireless router, it'll be defined by the port number sometimes, or in a lot of these, it'll just be a matter of saying, what game do you want me to dedicate bandwidth to? And you can just type in the name of the game, and it basically knows the port numbers for that game and configures it for you. So bandwidth is key, and you'll pay what you get for it. Just make sure you're going with 802.11ax.
Awesome. Love it. You're listening to you talk is always a pleasure. And I got to tell you, you are the king bald nerd. I will absolutely give you the crown. You own that crown.
As long as we're not in a sock, I'll take that crown. But once I'm sitting next to you when you're at work, I'll bow to you, young man. No problem whatsoever.
Awesome.
Woo, Rich,
Well,
that was fun.
that was fun. It was definitely beneficial. I think that's a lot of great information, and for sure, a lot of people will find some benefit in that. Even me.
Cool. All right. Well, I am out of here, man. Folks, stick around for the next episode of Two Bald Nerds. We don't know what we'll be talking about, but I promise it'll be cool. Until then, I'm Mike Meyers.
And I'm Richard. Nice to see y'all again.
Bye, guys.